I pozdrav moje ime hazuziii i danas ćemo gledati video, ne znam što drugo da radimo. Pa da, našao sam ovaj kanal, zove se Dead Meat, kao što vidite ovdje. Kao on je doslovno kao govori oko svih smrti u horror filmovima, pa da, meni je to zanimljivo. Htio sam jedan horror film iz prošle godine, 2019. Ali ako ne znate engleski, kad će vam sad? Evo, počinjemo 3, 2, 1. Ok, proste, idemo.
Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Brightburn, released in 2019. Brightburn is the first superhero horror movie I've covered on the Kill Count, but it's an ever-expanding subgenre, which only makes sense given Marvel's complete domination of the box office this past decade. In fact, Brightburn was produced by James Gunn, the guardian of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and who also wrote and produced the Belko Experiment. Although James only produced this movie, it was written by some young guns, his brother Brian and cousin Mark. Their script essentially asks, hey, what would happen if Superman was kind of a dick? Or more specifically, what would happen if Superman had been sent to Earth as an alien sleeper agent, only to be activated as a 12-year-old and told to take over the world? Brightburn is an okay movie, I guess. The premise is pretty interesting, and I love the way it's shot by director David Yarovesky. But the plotting feels uneven to me, and the character decisions seem kind of stupid sometimes. It doesn't help that we barely get a good sense of the characters before the plot kicks into action, which means Brandon Breyer, the central anti-superhero, becomes way too unlikable way too quickly for this story to feel tragic at all. It's a bit of wasted potential, especially since Elizabeth Banks and David Denman do such a great job playing Brandon's conflicted parents. But if you're just here to see a cool and gory horror take on your standard superhero origin story, well, you're in luck, Chuck, because Brightburn is hella slick and it's got some surprisingly graphic deaths. I know that's what some of you are here for, so let's avoid another 8-minute intro and get straight to the kills. The movie begins in Brightburn, Kansas, just down the road there at the Breyer farm. Inside their home, Tori and Kyle Breyer are trying to make a baby, and not by ringing up the stork, if you catch my meaning. Things haven't been working out for them with their trips on the Spermy Expressway, but it looks like they're about to be in luck tonight. Because something just landed in their backyard. And Freddy, do you want to tell them what it is? It's a boy! After some home movies that show baby Stardust there growing up, we jump to 10 years later with the heaven-sent diaper dirtier, now a 12-year-old boy named Brandon, played by Jackson A. Dunn. He's still quite the stinker, hiding from his mom Tori and jumping out at her like a little monster. Rawr, rawr, rawr. At school, he's a smart little monster with encyclopedic answers for his science teacher's questions. That earns him derision from some of his classmates, but encouragement from others.
Tori. Smart guys end up ruling the planet.
Subjugation, you say? One night, the barn on the Breyer farm starts glowing up more than Matthew Lewis, which causes lights to flicker and Brandon to experience scary dream voices. Yeah, that'll give you nightmare eyes for show. Brandon is compelled to fall out of his second-story window, which Tori hears from downstairs. One blurry flash in front of the camera later, Tori's checking out the barn, where she finds her creepy little space baby throwing himself against a chained-up trap door and growling passwords that fail to open it. Maybe you left caps lock on, little buddy. So yeah, Brandon is apparently activated already, which is kind of a shame. We barely know who he is or what was normal for him before he intercepted an alien transmission. We do see a bit of him as a normal kid the next day, while Kyle talks about how scared he was when they first adopted him, but I could have used a few more scenes establishing a baseline behavior for the kid. While his dad is out, Brandon sets a new PR in mower tossing. Someone want to test that kid out for juicing? Damn! And don't look look now, upturned mower, but thanks to the return of those alien whisper voices, you about to get these hands. Or at least one hand, which is plenty enough to stop the blade on its own. Looks like this adolescent boy is gonna have to be extra careful to avoid death grip syndrome. Brandon has a jump cut-filled birthday celebration at a local diner, where he and his parents are joined by Tori's sister Marilee and her husband Noah, who's played by Matt Jones of Breaking Bad fame, and who, for a while, was also part of an amazing musical improv show in LA called Opening Night. Noah gives Brandon a rifle, but his father immediately confiscates it, and we're left to assume that Brandon's indignant reaction is very out of place for him.
Give it to me.
Čekaj malo. Znači, on je za rođendan 12-godišnjaku dao pušku. Još kao ono za lovce. Lik je poremećen. Idemo dalje.
I'm sorry, what'd you just say to me?
I said, give it to me.
But no one seems to notice the electrical flickers going on there, not even as they correspond with Brandon's emotions or arm movements, so Tori and Kyle just take Brandon home, embarrassed. They express concern about their son.
Worry about him. And getting older, changing.
But not once during this entire conversation do they ever acknowledge that they found him in a frickin' crater. The whole time they're talking about him, it's like they don't even know that's a thing. It's insane. The next morning, before they head out for a family camping trip, they face a couple of strange hang-ups. First, Brandon's all of a sudden got an appetite for silverware, and second, they find his stash of smut, which is mostly PG-13 stuff, until they get to pictures of intestines and shit. Careful there, Brandon. That'll get you age restricted. The pictures prompt Kyle to give Brandon the sex talk, which goes just as awkwardly as that conversation usually does.
He was okay, they were.
Čekaj.
The pictures prompt Kyle to give Brandon the sex talk, which goes just as awkwardly as that conversation usually does.
He was okay, they were. Touch it or play with it.
With what?
With, your penis.
Okay, maybe this one's a little extra awkward. That night, Brandon takes it upon himself to act on his urges, disappear from the campsite, and pay a visit to Caitlin, that nice girl from school. I gotta admit, his abilities are a little bit confusing to me here. Caitlin wakes up to find her laptop open and playing music, and after closing it, confused, and walking back towards her bed, the laptop is suddenly reopened and playing music again. So is Brandon just like super ultra fast and opening her laptop at invisible speeds? Or is he telekinetic? I don't know, but he is hiding behind your curtains, little girl, so watch out! Or, wait a minute, is he? Well, he's not anymore, but Caitlin did get a good look at who was back there.
Brandon Breyer.
Good thing BB's got a watertight alibi. He was just out there peeing in the woods. No big, Mom. Brandon's behavior grows more and more aberrant. Like, sure, there's nothing that weird about doodling superhero costumes or logos with your initials, but when you start standing in front of the chicken coop and staring at the poultry all night, that's a good sign of being cockadoodle cray-cray. That point is proven when Kyle wakes up to find all the family's egg layers dead and dismembered. Tori dismisses her husband and says the chicken killer was a wolf, despite Kyle's solid line of reasoning.
Babe, a wolf can't do this. They can't rip a frickin' door off and break a lock.
And this is the first of many scenes where I'm like, what the fuck, Tori? Don't ignore the facts here. During a trust exercise at school, Caitlin causes Brandon to fall because she thinks he's a pivite, and that gets him mighty mad. So when she's forced to help him up, Brandon breaks her hand. Oh shit, he fucking wrecks it.
Erica, he said he's sorry.
What the fuck, Tori? Sorry's not gonna fuse those splintered bones back together. Brandon gets suspended from school, but to add insult to that sentencing, Caitlin's mother, Erica, makes sure to insult his adopted status.
Do you even know who his real mother is?
Brandon Breyer will remember that. Tori and Kyle have another conversation of concern, only this time they finally acknowledge Brandon's exogenesis when Tori tells Kyle she found him sleepwalking in the barn.
Did he find it?
But he was tugging at the trapdoor.
Then Kyle starts freaking out and mentions that Brandon's never bled once in his entire life, a fact that probably should have been mentioned before we were already through a third of this movie. Later that night, Tori does some celestial research, and Brandon starts hearing voices again.
Poruke.
Props Props to the sound design for this movie, by the way. It's some of the best I've heard in a while. Brandon is drawn to a red glow in the barn and begins to repeat an alien voice growling at him. When Tori finds Brandon, he's floating midair above the open trap door. When he falls, he cuts his hand on an object down there, and that makes him bleed for the first time in his life. That moment would probably feel more important if we hadn't just learned about the bleeding thing like 2 minutes ago. The kryptonite of Brandon's high armor class is the meteorite from the beginning, and the discovery of that space crib leads to a conversation about where he came from. Answer, that rock right there. Tori tells Brandon that she thinks of him as a gift straight from the universe, but he gets all alien angry about having been lied to his whole life, so he storms away from her and starts to break stuff. It's just one of those days, you know, when you don't want to wake up. He leaves the house, verbally repeating the alien message he just learned from that space rock until he's able to decipher its meaning.
Take the world. Take the world.
And 1 and 2 and laser eyes and good. Brandon, keep it bright. Before going to take the world, Brandon stops by Caitlin's room again and delivers the scariest manifesto a young girl could ever hear.
I'm very special. You're one of the only people in the world that knows how special I am. But someday, they will all know.
Caitlin says that her mom told her not to talk to him, but Brandon tells her he's got a plan for that. Don't worry, Caitlin, he's gone now. And you know what? We can just drop your character entirely, too. Yeah, we won't be needing you for the rest of the movie. Thanks. Instead, Brandon moves on to her mother, Erica, who's currently closing up shop at the local diner. Things get spooky in a hurry, with weird symbols appearing on the windows and the ceiling lights flickering overhead. Oh, wait, did I say flickering? Because I meant bursting open. Oh, and she got it in her eye. In an excruciatingly gross scene, Erica picks the glass shard out of her eye. It's totally gross. The experience leaves her seeing half red, which is a pretty cool effect, and with her inhibited vision, she has a hard time seeing the costumed individual appearing in various places all around her. She runs into the freezer and locks herself inside, but Brandon just huffs and puffs and lasers the door down. Erica gets one final look at her tormentor before Brandon kills her with a jump scare. Yeah, that's the way this movie's effects look. They're fine, I guess. The next morning, Brandon comes downstairs and tells his parents that everything's perfectly all right now. He's fine. He's all fine here now. Thank you. How are you? Although his suspension is over now, Brandon still has to see his school's counselor, who just so happens to be his Aunt Marilee. Wow, talk about a rigged-ass system of justice. Brandon alarms Marilee with his talk of being superior to everyone else and his total lack of remorse for what he did.
Sometimes, when bad things happen to people, it's for a good reason.
That's a yikes from Marilee, who tells Brandon that she's gonna have to tell his parents and the sheriff about his troubling behavior. Not good, Brandon, especially since the sheriff's already investigating Erica's disappearance from the diner. Aw, no, and he's getting sexy with the windows and finding those BBs everywhere? Marilee gets a house visit from Brandon that night, who tells her that she's not allowed to speak to the sheriff about what he said in school.
It's just not good for anyone.
Marilee is like, dude, you're making it worse. Get the fuck off my porch, and sends him away. But then, very stupidly, and in my opinion, unrealistically, she does not call her sister to tell her that Brandon was at her house. Instead, she just decides to go to bed, never noticing that Brandon's standing back there looking like a stranger. At a bar, Kyle laments to his buddies that his son might actually be a monster, before Noah takes off and heads back home. When he comes through the front door, the noise scares Brandon out of the hallway and into the ceiling corner of Badger's bathroom. But his invisispeed isn't quite fast enough to keep Noah from catching a glimpse of him as he de-Batmans.
Oh, shit!
Noah finds Brandon in his closet, and Matt Jones reminds us all how effortlessly funny he is.
What the fuck are you doing in my closet wearing this creepy mask?
It's not creepy.
He tries to haul Brandon outside so he can take him back home to his parents, but Brandon would much rather put his mask back on and play a game of glowy eyes. Haha, Uncle Noah, you lose. Brandon disappears, and Noah gets into his car and drives off. To where? I don't know. He could have just gone back inside his house, where his sleeping wife was, and locked the doors. But instead, he decides to go for a joyride. Brandon brings his ride a little less joy, and the impact causes his car to stall out in the road. After some scary floaty stuff and a bunch of negatives from Noah,
No, No!
His vehicle begins to rise from the road, ass end up. It is absolutely terrifying to see from Noah's perspective, and you really feel the power of the impact when the vehicle is dropped and hits the ground. The head-on collision with the ground doesn't kill Noah right away, but it does break his jaw right off. It is a nasty marriage of sight and sound as Noah slowly gurgles to death. And he finally dies after Brandon stares him down for a while impassively. And as if dying wasn't bad enough for Noah, Brandon then uses his blood to draw his shitty little edgelord logo on the ground. Brandon comes home to his very worried parents, and it doesn't calm them down at all when they see that he's missing a shirt. What's up with that, Bran?
I was playing soccer.
Oh, okay. He was just on Team Skins. It's cool. Having plopped out some bullshit straight from his mouth, Brandon goes up to his room. Leaving his parents so flustered, they talk openly about his backstory.
Maybe we need to talk to somebody. He needs like a specialist.
What? And say what to him?
I don't know.
Hello, this is our son. We found him in a fucking spaceship in the woods.
Kyle says that this is all their fault, that they should have done something a long time ago, and then goes to bed angry. You should never do that, my man, because that's a good way to have freaky-dicky nightmares. Like the one where your bedroom's in a forest, or the one where your wife adopts a space baby. Yeah, that one's always messy. Some evil glowy baby eyes wake Kyle up, where he's greeted with a phone call from Marilee at the hospital, who tells the Bryars that Noah's dead. When she mentions that Brandon was at her house shortly before it happened, Tori and Kyle grow concerned, and over an off-brand box of Puma O's the next morning, they confront him. Brandon is nonchalant when they tell him his uncle is dead, which causes Kyle to pretty much openly accuse him of foul play.
That is bullshit. He is fucking lying.
Brandon goes to peace out, and when Kyle tries to stop him, Brandon shows his dad, who's the new Superman of the house, and throws him backwards through a wall. While Brandon's showering off his rage, Kyle jump cut searches his room and finds a shirt tucked behind a dresser, hidden because it's covered in blood. Better hide that discovery from your little Anthony Fremont there, Kyle. He shows Tori the shirt, but again, she won't listen to a word of it.
How could Brandon have killed Noah and then made it look like a car
He knows what
accident?
kind of weird shit he could do.
What the fuck, Tori? Your son's a goddamn alien. Start putting the pieces together here. Instead, she leaves Kyle in a huff and lets the movie get back to its half-baked cop plot where the perfunctory sheriff finally notices that Brandon's symbol was on both the diner windows and the ground by Noah's accident. Kyle has a patriarchal cry as he takes a walk down memory lane to a time when Brandon was younger and much less murdery. In bed that night, he comforts Tori and tells her that he's gonna take Brandon hunting over the weekend to show that he still loves him. Aw, that's nice. After they leave the next day, the sheriff arrives at the Breyer house to ask Tori if she recognizes the symbol he keeps finding everywhere.
Doesn't that look like a BB, maybe? As in Brandon Breyer?
Doesn't look like anything to me, Sheriff.
Ok, to je jako smiješno, ali nemam baš jako puno vremena još do kraja videa, mislim. Ček da vidim. Ne kažem. Svejedno. Super video, do kraja ćemo ga gledati drugi put, imamo još dosta puno. Onda ćemo valjda gledati neki drugi od ovih. Pa da, to je bilo oko to. Hvala vam što ste gledali. Thanks. Ajde. Bok.